Good day. Today is June 23rd, 2021. I'm Derek Philibrandt, publisher of the Western Standard, and you're watching The Pipeline. Thank you for joining us today. I'm joined in the Western Standard's Calgary offices by Western Standard news editor Dave Naylor. Dave, England won. How do you feel?
England won. It's coming home.
Britannia rules. Who did they beat again?
Croatia. No, sorry, Czech Republic. They beat Croatia earlier.
Well, England can win a war on land, it seems.
There you go.
There we go. And also joined by Corey Morgan, Alberta political columnist and host of the Corey Morgan Show. Corey, how much do you care about soccer?
Not in the slightest.
Well, you're not invited to Germany-Hungary later today, then. Well, thank you for joining us today. Before we get going, we want to thank our Western Standard members for your continuing support. Without you, we couldn't be doing what we're doing now. If you're not yet a member of the Western Standard, go to westernstandardonline.com/membership. You can try a membership free for 15 days. See if you like it. If you do, continue on. If not, just cancel. But please don't. I'd really like you not to, please. Today's show is brought to you by the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights. Nobody works as hard as the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights to protect your ability to own and use firearms. Check out what the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights is doing for you by going to firearmsrights.ca and clicking Why Us. Today's show is also sponsored by Resistance Coffee. Resistance Coffee, normally I've got a regular spiel, but Corey actually ordered a bunch of this, some Liberal Tears, some Black Gold, a few others. Why don't you tell us about the coffee?
Sure, no, it's great. It came in quickly. It was shipped. I mean, well, it's coming from Western Canada to Western Canada. We ordered the whole variety of it. Right now, I've been working on the Liberal Tears just because I love the name of it so much, and it's a really good coffee.
It's a great thing to drink in the morning.
Yeah, it shows up, in that box, and you smell all those coffee beans. It's good coffee, so it's nice to be able to virtue signal from the right while actually enjoying a good product while you're at it. It's not like I have to gag it down and make a point. I've heard somebody,
Did you use the Western Standard promo code?
I did. I got 10% off of it on my first order, and 10% of it's going to be going to good conservative causes. So I'm just winning all around. It makes it that much more satisfying. I've heard if you mix the Liberal Tears with the Black Gold, it's quite a good combination too. So you can play with some of the roasts while you're at it.
Well, let us know how your combos work.
I'll keep giving updates. You'll see by how tired or grumpy I am on particular days when I come in.
Yeah. So use so go to resistancecoffee.com and use promo code Western Standard. That's one word, Western Standard, and you'll get 10% off your first order. Make sure you do that. You'll be supporting the Western Standard, you'll be supporting Resistance Coffee, getting good coffee, and then let us know how it is. Let us know if you've ordered it. Let us know if how it worked for you, what your favorite blends are. Well, let's jump into it, into the fun part here. Alberta's opening up. They say it's for good. We've heard that a little bit before, but they seem particularly serious about it now. I mean, it's getting every day it gets harder and harder to justify lockdowns and these things and continued restrictions. But Calgary City Council, led by its mayor, Nenshi, not so keen on reopening for summer. Why don't you tell us what's happening there, Dave?
Yeah, not so keen at all, Derek. It's mask mayhem at Calgary City Council. Their bylaw on masking in indoor facilities runs all the way through to the end of the year. So they're now discussing when they're going to drop it, if they're going to drop it. They met this week on Monday, and by an 8-7 margin, led by Mayor Nenshi, they voted to keep the mask bylaw in place until July 5th. Province is opening up on July 1st, as we know. COVID cases, it was 57 yesterday, Derek, in the entire province, 57 cases only. And Calgary is still not made a decision yet on whether or not to remove their mask bylaw. Edmonton looks like they're leaning that way to remove it, but they've put off a final decision until Friday. So they could still remove theirs before or in conjunction with the provincial easing of restrictions, but not so for Calgary. They'll be back on July 5th to decide when to lift it, if at all.
I think there's a few layers to this, Corey, but I think the most evident part of this is it's clearly not about health. This is now very clearly politics. This is, I think, Nenshi's and members of council like Gondek and kind of the left bloc on council. It's their way of saying we're safer than the Kenney government. Again, the Kenney government, Jason Kenney just had a press conference a few minutes ago that you just wrapped up watching. I didn't catch most of it, but I did overhear him using some language that people would use even a month ago in describing his government. The way he was describing Nenshi was saying, you've got no justification for this. You're just a killjoy. The government's been using terms like, they call Rachel Notley a lockdown loony. The only difference between Rachel Notley and Jason Kenney on this whole thing has been 2 weeks. She says something, and then 2 weeks later, he tends to do it. But that 2 weeks, I guess, is the difference between good, stable leadership and being a loon. Corey, do you think they really believe this is going to save lives here, or is this
not in the slightest? This is pure posturing. The numbers have plummeted. They haven't just dropped. As Dave said yesterday, they were down to 57. Of those, I think perhaps 30 or 40 were in Calgary out of 1.4 million people. Even Dr. Joe Vipond, who's been a very outspoken doctor, pro lockdown. He's been a dedicated NDP donor. So anytime he could undercut, and he moves on the part of the UCP, he's been very vocal about it. He had trouble trying to justify further restrictions. It's a matter of council trying to score political points, led by Nenshi in particular, to give the middle finger to the UCP and Kenney. If you listen to Mayor Nenshi lately, he's talking a heck of a lot more on provincial issues than he has been on civic issues even. And, in fact, there's not been a camera.
I don't think that's a new thing.
Well, more than usual. He's jumping up on everything. Every time I listen to a newscast, they go to Nenshi for comment because he's standing there front and center. It seems almost like he's working on a campaign that isn't municipal. And if he can make Kenney's move seem a little more miserable, I think this is going to backfire on them, though. They're trying to make sure that Kenney doesn't have that best summer ever. So they want to keep people miserable. But people are realizing, I'm looking forward to it on Canada Day. It sounds like a heat wave is going to be coming. And when people are sitting on patios and coming and going to a washroom freely without masking up, or being able to go into a Canadian Tire or Home Depot shopping in Okotoks and Cochrane and Airdrie and Cross Iron Mills, and I hope they post their pictures of it, showing how happy and how they're enjoying themselves, while Calgarians languish miserably in masks, continuing when the cases don't justify it. I think those 7 members of council who said, let's keep this mask bylaw rolling interminably, they didn't even make their mind up on it. They just said, we'll kick it down the road till July 5th. It's going to come at a cost.
Yeah, I was in Cochrane last night for supper, and you leave the 2 big cities, very few people are wearing masks anywhere, or if they are, it's a token thing. No one really cares.
Can you imagine enforcing when the rest of the province is open? And there's going to be people who are going to say, they're going to, and I feel for the business owners because they get caught in the middle. But somebody's going to come into a business in Calgary without a mask, and they could potentially get belligerent, and it's going to be difficult to convince that person though to comply when the rest of the province is open. This is just, we got to move together on this, and the numbers aren't justifying this.
I feel sorry for the bylaw officers.
Yeah,
right. Can you imagine them handing out tickets between July 1st and July 5th?
$5 says they're not handing out any tickets.
You may be right. I'm just about to publish a story. Courts across the West have been dropping tickets left, right, and center. And these are tickets from several months ago, never mind the week where the province has already stopped the regulations. To be a bylaw officer that week, I'd be booking holidays.
Well, and businesses. That's the thing, too. And people say, oh, it's just masks. It won't affect it. Yes, it will. People are sick of this. I remember going before the mask bylaw came provincially. I went with Jane to the Cochrane Canadian Tire, and that's a fantastic one there.
I was there yesterday.
Yeah, and we were unmasked in it. It's just, you're just walking down those aisles unmasked and enjoying yourself. And people were glaring because some people were voluntarily wearing them at that time. That was a year ago. But at this point, people, you're darn right they're going to get up and go outside of the city to get their stuff done. We are surrounded by businesses. Actually, a lot of it thanks to Nenshi's tax policies over the last decade. Cross Iron Mills and other ones right on city limits. People will go out there, and struggling businesses in the city are going to get punished yet again due to Nenshi's anti-business policies.
Yeah, I think if there's essentially 5 days where the province is not got these mandatory mask laws, but the city of Calgary does, it's going to be like the dying days of World War One. Everyone, like the armistice is already signed, and no one wants to be the last guy shot. So, like the bylaw officers, they're going to see it. They might say, "Hey, please wear a mask." But I really can't imagine, unless one is a real asshole. They're not issuing tickets.
Unfortunately, we do have some crazed anti-mask people. There are some. I mean, most people are just sick of it. But, you know, there's that mayoral candidate who's, I think he's still in jail. But he's got a small following of people, and they do get belligerent, and they're going to feel more inflamed and empowered. And again, unfortunately, it's not the politicians who pay for this. It's the bylaw officers and the business owners and that when these crackpots come in and start pressuring them. And this will incite them further. And it's going to be more difficult to prosecute. It was foolish. They had no reason, and it was a 7-7 vote, so which meant it failed.
Yeah.
But, you know, this was split, and it was just ridiculous, and it's just a case of trying to score political points on idiocy.
Also makes it an interesting mayoral battle, too, because you got Jeremy Farkas on one side, who has said drop it immediately, and you got Judy Gondek on the other side, who said, you know, she quite passionately fought to keep the mask bylaw in place. So that's going to come back on the campaign trail one way or the other.
Oh, yeah. Well, it shows because she's Nenshi's heir apparent. She will do what Nenshi leads on. And it's good to remind voters of that. And I will all the way till voting day.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll move on to something in Ottawa. Good things always happen in Ottawa. Bill C-10 has passed the House of Commons. That is the internet censorship bill, or if you're a liberal, I don't know, the Canadian Cultural Protection. I don't know what they actually call the damn thing, but it's an update to the Broadcasting Act. But this is the very controversial censorship bill. It's passed the House of Commons. Dave, why don't you tell us about the vote, how it went down, who voted for it, who voted against it, and what the status of the bill is now?
As expected, Derek, the Liberals were joined by the Bloc and the NDP in supporting the bill. It was only the Conservatives who voted against, and an independent MP, Wilson Raybould. So now it's passed the House of Commons, and now the Senate gets it. And there's already warning flags from the senators that they're in no rush to try and pass this before the summer recess. One senator quoted saying they're tired of having to push through non-COVID related legislation without being given a chance to properly review it. So opponents of the law, like us, I guess, are hoping that the Senate debates it thoroughly and it gets not passed until after the summer. And then if the Liberals call an election during the summer recess, then the bill dies anyways. So that's the only hope we have left, is that the Senate debates long enough to have it die. I will note one thing, though, that it's been more than 25 years since the Senate has defeated a cabinet motion. So it would be
that was the bill under the Mulroney government to bring in regulations on abortion after it had been struck down by the...
No.
Was it something else?
Yeah, what I read this one is something to do with the Toronto airport and insurance.
What? That's what they went to war on?
Hey, who knows?
Insurance companies are heavy donors.
So the last time, at least I'm aware of, that the Senate outright killed a bill was Supreme Court Canada struck down Canada's abortion legislation. It didn't say that regulation of abortion was unconstitutional. It said that particular bill was unconstitutional because the way it was written, it put women's health at risk if there was medically necessary reasons for an abortion. The government had to come out with some kind of a compromise bill, and it failed in the Senate because both the hardcore pro-choice and the hardcore pro-life both voted against it. The hardcore pro-life guys, I guess, thought they would get a better bill later on. Joke's on them. They never got a bill, like 30 years later. So that's the last time I think that I can remember that there was a prominent piece of legislation that the Senate has defeated. It's quite rare. But the Senate will very often amend things significantly.
I don't think they'll outright defeat this one. I mean, they've got the path out. They'll just let it die on the order paper. So it wouldn't be a defeat. It would just be dragging their feet, which a lot of those old fellas are good at. And, things will go into recess. And as Dave said, I mean, it's pretty much almost considered a done deal. Parliament's going to get dissolved. We're going into an election before they sit again. So this bill will have to be redrafted and represented and start all over again.
Yeah. Well, one of our viewers, Cheryl Dawn, says that Senator Housakos, I don't know how to say that, said that they will keep Bill C-10 in the Senate for 6 to 12 months or until it's dead. I don't know. I hope.
That's a lot of old windbags speaking for a long time, isn't it?
Yeah.
They got you can sit in the Senate for 40 years if you're right age when you get appointed.
And that senator, I believe, he's in Ontario, and he's actually been a good outspoken conservative senator. But, he's from the old appointments there.
Yeah.
He's in a minority.
Well, speaking of the Senate, let's go on to new senators. Justin Trudeau has appointed 3 new independent members of the Senate. These are not liberals at all. None of them were donors. None of them have been candidates. Or am I wrong?
One of them was.
You couldn't tell the...
Yes, it was sarcasm.
You couldn't tell?
No.
It's my German humor.
Ah, there it is. Yeah, Prime Minister Trudeau appointed 3 senators yesterday, including one who was actually a former Liberal candidate. But with a straight face, he said that she would be going into the Red Chamber as an independent. The other senators were appointed down east in New Brunswick, for example. But it certainly plays into the current Senate election that's being prepared for Alberta on the same day as the civic election, October 18th. Jason Kenney has told Trudeau not to appoint any senators from Alberta until that Senate election. Whether or not Trudeau listens to Kenney or not will remain to be seen. But I think there's 2 vacant spots in Alberta, if I'm not mistaken.
2, yeah.
Yeah. So if Trudeau wanted to give a big middle finger to, like his family's famous for, to Alberta, he could certainly do that by usurping the Senate elections and appointing them before the vote is even held.
It was strange that he didn't fill those Alberta spots at the same time as the others, though.
There's about 15 vacancies, and they're playing some. He's got a backlog of ones he's been putting off. I mean, something interesting of these 3 that he put in, though, one of them actually was pretty hardcore NDP. He was the head of the Canadian Labour Congress. I see political brinkmanship going on here. I mean, that's a way to undercut NDP support and Jagmeet Singh by putting a hard leftist into the Senate, of more of an NDP stripe, and still pretend that it's independent. So, I mean, I think they are playing their cards carefully on what they'll do with Alberta.
Well, where Trudeau's taken his government anyway, I mean, if so like the senators are not liberals in the sense that they sit in the Liberal Party caucus, but they're like, if I was an independent senator, I'd be independent in the sense I don't sit with a caucus, but I would very clearly have an ideological direction I move in. I would probably vote on the bills accordingly with that view. It's the same thing with these Liberal senators. And the way Trudeau's taken the Liberal Party ideologically, appointing people who are New Democrats traditionally, or from that kind of Labour area, I don't think that's going to really be a problem for him. They'll sit technically as independents anyway, and ideologically they'll probably agree with most of his agenda.
It's not like he was going to take Dan Kelly from the CFIB and put him in the Senate or something like that. I mean, these independents are all on the left end of the spectrum. But I mean, there were some blue liberals, or back in the past anyways, in the Chrétien years and so on, that you could look at. And I
don't think there's been any blue liberals appointed as independents here. They've all been...
It's been a while. They're all left now, I guess.
Yeah. What do you think the chances are that Alberta gets when Alberta elects senators? However, I think probably corrupted the processes for Alberta's Senate elections. What do you think the chances are that Alberta's Senate nominees who get elected are going to actually take a seat in the Senate?
From Trudeau, 0. Not a chance.
0?
I think at best he would leave it. He'd just drag his feet and leave those vacancies until past the federal election. But he won't set that precedent in putting in conservatively elected senators. No Liberal Prime Minister has ever done it. They've always opposed Senate elections. They would never want to legitimize the Senate election by putting one in.
The hardest Senate appointment ever, I think, was the hardest Senate election appointment ever was the very first one, when Stan Waters won in Alberta. Brian Mulroney agreed with Don Getty at the time, because Alberta was starting to elect senator nominees, and it was a part of the Charlottetown Accords and Beach Lake and all that, and Brian Mulroney agreed in principle that, yeah, okay, Don Getty, whoever Albertans elect, I will appoint to the Senate. And then Stan Waters of the Reform Party won, which was a big problem for the Progressive Conservatives. And Don Getty didn't even want it. He said, like, yes, you need to appoint the people who we elect. And the first person they elect was a Reform Party guy. And Don Getty he kind of grudgingly went along. And then Mulroney just had no choice. He publicly agreed. This is his whole Charlottetown Accord and Beach Lake were all hanging on this. So he did appoint them. So technically there has been a single Senate appointment of someone who was not of the party of the Prime Minister doing the appointment.
And it was a politically complicated case. And you'll notice, though, with the political scholars we have these days, like Premier Kenney and others, they modeled this so you couldn't have provincial candidates coming in. If any Conservative does win, they're going to be from the Conservative Party of Canada. And if lightning strikes twice or three times in one spot, and Aaron O'Toole somehow actually manages to become Prime Minister, he might appoint those senators. But they're trying to hedge that bet right now. I mean, they certainly wouldn't want to see, a Wild Rose Independence Party senator-elect come in because then they're in that same hard spot that Mulroney was in.
Well, but by excluding provincial parties, and essentially just trying to more or less rig this so there's only Tories on the ballot plus a couple of independents who will have no shot. I don't think it creates a very legitimate election. So, frankly, I actually don't want these senators to get appointed unless we have a legitimate Senate election process. I don't think we should legitimate an illegitimate election. I think we should have Senate elections. I just think we should let federal and provincial parties run. Or actually, I'm not even sure if federal parties should be running at all, but I think the best way to do is you have provincial parties actually run, and the parties provincially and federally can decide if they want to have any kind of alignment or not, and that's up to them.
Yeah, they do have an endorsement system for provincial parties to endorse candidates.
No, but it doesn't appear on the ballot.
It doesn't appear on the ballot. No,
and then, therefore, if you have a party that's only provincial, they're just listed as an independent, and that endorsement matters nothing. Yeah. Well, it's not a disadvantage. It's next to a disqualification. Yeah. There's just a 0% chance they get elected.
Trudeau may only be able to avoid the issue for so long. He may let it drag out this time until the election. It looks like he's going to get reelected. Sorry to ruin everybody's day. So he's going to have to make the decision somewhere down the road. So one way or the other.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll wrap it up there. Again, I want to thank our Western Standard members for their continued support. If you're not yet a member of the Western Standard, go to westernstandardonline.com/membership. Try a Western Standard membership for 15 days. See if you like it. Today's show was sponsored by Resistance Coffee. Go to resistancecoffee.com and use promotion code Western Standard. That's one word, Western Standard, to get 10% off your first order. Corey loves this stuff. He's ordered a bunch. He particularly likes the Liberal Tears brand. So to support, get some good coffee, go to resistancecoffee.com and use promo code Western Standard, one word, to get 10% off. As well, today's show was supported by the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights. Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights really does great work standing up for your right to own and operate firearms safely. To learn more about them and how you can get involved, go to firearmsrights.ca and click Why Join Us. I really encourage you to become a member of their organization. They're doing great work. If you're a gun owner, like I haven't made it mandatory that everyone at the Western Standard has guns, but I'm considering it. And if that's the case, I'm going to make sure everybody's a member of the CCFR as well. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate your time and your support. God bless.